evening, Rian Kutsia Fortis, Proactive Defense Solutions. I'm back talking to Jonathan Wright, CEO of the Firearms Policy Campaign. And tonight we're going to be talking very specifically about what sets Firearms Policy Campaign apart from other similar or more or less similar organizations currently available to people. Jonathan, good evening and welcome.
Good evening, Rian. Thanks for having me back once again.
Yeah, it's always a pleasure talking to you. Thanks for making time for me. I know that doctorate of yours is sort of wrapping itself up, and it's really keeping you busy over and above your daily
If only it was wrapping itself up and not wrapping itself around me, along with all the other things I have to do with my full-time life. So
yes. Oh well, such is life. But thank you for making time for me. I appreciate it as always. Jonathan, I wanted to talk to you specifically to start getting a better idea of what makes Firearms Policy Campaign's approach different. I mean, there are quite a few other similar or more or less similar styled organizations. South African Gun Owners Association comes to mind, purely because they are probably the oldest, I think, on the market, or they've been in this or busy with this the longest. So everybody knows about them. What sets you apart from them?
So I think that a good way to start this discussion is to say that the purpose and the intent is not to criticize, it's to be critical, because this is something that the broader farm community as a whole needs to do a lot more of. It needs to be a lot more critical of itself and each other, but in a constructive way that helps and builds rather than breaks down and just what would the description be? Just drags people through the mud sort of thing. Because that's the only way that anyone really gets anywhere. And South Africa has a very healthy civil society as a whole already. And I would say that the farm community as a whole is also in a very good state. I'm hesitant to use the word healthy, but it's there. I mean, that alone is a good thing. And it's increasingly vocal over the past, I'd say the last 10 years, it's been increasingly vocal. It's a good sign of health. I do think it could be a lot better, but that comes through with a lot of coordination rather than a very siloed existence. So what sets the FPC apart? Well, in the very first video that we ever did, I did kind of touch on this. And so yes, I think for the purposes of this video, we would want to look at each of the main organizations or the known ones and give my and the FPC's perspective on them. Again, it's not to criticize, it's to be critical and to help them identify their blind spots. And maybe some of the things that I have to say about them, they say, no, that's fine. We are happy with that. That's who we are. You don't like it. Too bad. Okay, fine.
Yes.
But there does need to be a better awareness within the farm community about the exact nature of each organization, what they can do, have done, and can still do.
Well, so, I mean, this is your viewpoint, and how you perceive it. You know, and you're a firearms owner, so you have a good idea of how things work and you know, the legal aspect and everything. So I think you certainly have a voice, and it's definitely worthwhile hearing. One can always learn something or not.
And I am very happy to. I mean, I've been in the community now since 2015, although I only had my own first firearm since early 2017. But I was already there, lurking in the various groups and pages, the gun site, GOSA, EDCSA only came along much later. But as far as the FPC is concerned, to not go too much in detail since we already have a video on that, the FPC was founded in late October 2022. It is an incorporated company, as a non-profit company, therefore it has PBO, public benefit organization status, which I should add is an immediate hallmark that sets it apart from any other organization in the farm community. I think we are the only one that has that coveted status. It is possible you can only get PBO status if you are an incorporated non-profit company. Non-governmental organizations, I don't think they can get them, but they can get income tax exemption for certain activities. But I do not believe that they can issue Section 18A tax deductible certificates. So you give money to the FPC, we can give you a certificate at the end of the tax year. It gets used to deduct your contributions from your taxable income. I'm not so sure that any other organization can say that. But slightly leading on from the introduction, we welcome criticism from anyone else as well about the FPC. We need to be aware of our blind spots. We have received little criticisms here and there on social media. We note them, we take them seriously. We don't always say, okay, cool, thank you, and we will change our ways, however small those issues may have been. But we do note them, we do consider them.
Okay.
Our mandate, the FPC has a broad public safety focus. That is what the PBO status is for. We have a special emphasis on firearms within that broader focus. So with that broad mandate, it means we can do basically anything we want in line with public safety and still benefit from the PBO status that we have. One of the other things about a PBO status is that it forces you to be, or us, to be very transparent by necessity. We have to have audited financial statements every year if we want to maintain that status.
That's negative. Okay.
Achievements, as of this time, we don't have any really, not in the same way that other organizations can say, and we will touch on them. But we are working on a project at the moment, we kind of figure out what we want to do, but everything's a slow process when everyone's working full-time jobs. And this is something that a lot of the other organizations are probably quite familiar with, since I think there are very few people in the farm community that do the sort of thing full-time and get a salary out of it. So yeah, it involves the CPF in Luantle, and we want to make it more effective. We already know what we want to do, donate a refurbished shipping container to them. So we need to do fundraising and then figure out the logistics of getting it to them and that sort of thing. We already have good relations with the police station there that would use it. And this is part of the whole process and its slowness, or to build relationships isn't a flash in the pan and quick affair.
Yes, it takes time.
Yeah.
It always takes time.
Yeah. Slow and steady wins the race. And this is one of the other characteristics of the FPC. It's taken us a long time just to get here, but we're trying to build a corporate identity that is sustainable and meaningful. And that takes time. Like, what is our mandate? How will we market ourselves? What do we believe? What don't we believe? What do we reject? Things like that. And this kind of leads into the next point. Despite whatever shortcomings the FPC has right now, I do not think that any other organization can say that they have the knowledge that we do about the history, the evolution and purpose of firearm regulation in South Africa. And this is part of why it's such slow going for us to establish this brand identity of ours, because it's so dependent on my doctorate, which is now nearing its end. But even if that is the case, I still feel like I'm learning something new every day, because until I actually submit this thing, I have to go find resources, read things, learn new things along the way. So
just sorry, Jonathan, just for the listeners and the viewers, Jonathan and I are busy with a series at the moment called Muskets to Magazines, which is basically focused on the central theme of his doctorate, where we are discussing over a series of quite a few episodes this history that Jonathan was just referring to, this history of firearm ownership and regulation in South Africa. And it's really tremendously interesting. So remember to check it out on our channel. The videos are there. I think there's the first two episodes are up already.
And we can
Jonathan.
say that those muskets magazines that's just the colonial era. We still need to do the 20th century and the Farms Control Act era. We'll get there.
Exactly.
Slow and steady. But that's exactly what the FPC is, slow and steady. And we're slowly building a profile and positioning ourselves to be a recognized and go-to expert entity on the concept of firearm regulation and control. And this is another characteristic which we will touch on when discussing the other organizations from my perspective as the person here talking. Finally, the FPC is absolutely unapologetic about firearm ownership and fundamentally rejects the control rationale as a whole. We accept that there is a concept of reasonable regulation, but it's pretty clear to us that the government at no point in the history of South Africa has ever known what that reasonable point is. They still don't. And I am not so sure, even though I know that every other organization out there will agree that there is a reasonable limit of reasonable regulation in respect to firearms. I am not so sure that where exactly they sit on that fence a lot of the time. But we will get more towards that when we discuss them in more detail. So that's the FPC, basically, as the corporate identity as it stands now, I shall say. Yeah, I'm not sure if you have any other questions along the way.
You mentioned that you want to just touch on other organizations as well, SAGA, GOSA, and so on.
All right, so when it comes to, let's start with SAGA. They are the oldest organization out there. You recently had Damien Enslin on for a chat talking about the rumored amendments, which we know exist by now. And I would direct the viewer to go and watch that, the first bit of that video, to find out more about it as well. Then you would hear about who SAGA is from SAGA's own mouth, or at least one of their trustees. And yes, you heard correctly, trustee, because SAGA is not a company or a non-governmental organization or anything like that. It's a business trust. As a result, I do not think that it is possible to acquire PBO status, even if it might be able to get income tax exemption for certain activities, like I mentioned earlier. But I'm not sure how much it can achieve in terms of getting tax benefits for itself and members or subscribers or anything like that, which is unfortunate. But yeah, when setting up a corporate, I mean, SAGA converted to a trust, I think, long ago. If it was not a trust from the beginning already, I'm not sure. But that's not really important. We're just talking broad strokes here. SAGA has a broad focus on representing firearm owners. Well, specific focus on representing firearm owners, which has been doing since 1985. How effective it has been, I guess, depends on the decade in question. In the course of my research, I may have encountered their name once in the Parliament Hansard until at least 2000 or 1999. When an organization is very active, one would probably expect them to be a bit more top of mind. But fortunately, today, that is not the case. Well, at least that absence of mention. I think they are very well known in Parliament at this point in time, and they are very vocal and get mentioned quite often.
I've also seen recently on their Facebook page they've been very vocal about this. I'm just going to say this proposed amendment because I've got a lot more to say about it.
I mean, they've always kind of been there, as mentioned, since 1985. They've always been there. They were involved during the 2000 FCA debates, but again, it's like how effective were they, or the community as a whole at the time? I mean, the community as a whole was very much on the back foot during when the FCA was being created. It came out of nowhere and was suddenly there, and they had to react to it. And Gun Free South Africa and all their friends had a very well coordinated strategy and campaign. And the farm community broadly, in my opinion, I don't think they stood a chance. Because Gun Free South Africa and friends had already written the script. They had already decided what they wanted to see. Like they were unconditional about that, and they had already decided what they were willing to give leeway on. And so any wins that the farm community at that time gained, I don't necessarily think it was because they had a good strategy. I think it was just because Gun Free South Africa and friends had already decided that we'll let them have that because we know what we want. These are the important things. Everything else, age limits, whatever, that's secondary. And it really shows the importance of the need to actually unite. Well, I don't like that word really, but to coordinate the community, the farm community, because it shows what can be achieved when everyone is able to get around a fundamental group of core principles, and then they decide ahead of time, this is what we're going, like, this is what we want. No questions asked, no leeway will be given. And these are the things that, yeah, we'll compromise on that, and we don't even need that, but these are the things we care about. And
that to me is absolutely vital in this whole fight against this drive to disarm the civilian population and security companies.
yeah,
We need
fortunately,
to be honest about that. That's the main driving point. That's the big goal, irrespective of what anybody says. And I think it's crucial for the whole firearms community and all these organizations to, at the very least, even though you've all got certain and obviously some fundamental differences in your thinking and approaches and everything, there's a need for all of these organizations and firearm owners as a whole to present a united front. Because at the end of the day, it's about our rights to own firearms.
so, I mean, you mentioned especially in the context of these amendments that we've had to bat away since 2001 now. I don't really think it's much of a litmus test for the community at all, other than to say that, okay, there's one thing we can agree on, which is the self-defense angle. But my point is more broadly aligned with the fact that this is not difficult. The government has made it extremely easy for us by just being so dumb and stupid and just insane with and irrational in what they want to achieve by putting out this garbage that they call a serious lawmaking effort. It's not difficult to oppose that. It doesn't need a coordinated front because everybody, like, it's such low-hanging fruit, like the self-defense thing. Like, not even someone like John Matham, who is not necessarily very predisposed towards firearm ownership, went on radio and said, like, this is absolutely crazy. How can you do this? When you have journalists like that on your side, it says that the government has made a mistake. And we need to be cognizant of that. Just because we're winning, at least we won on the 2021 thing, even though it's back now 4 years later, doesn't necessarily mean it's that much of a win. It's like taking candy from a baby sort of thing. The real challenge would be if the government says, okay, we're going to repeal the Firearms Control Act and we're going to do something completely different. And that has lots of surprises in it. Now the question becomes, okay, now how would we react to that? So there's a lot of scope.
How do you see getting to that point?
There's a lot that needs to be done. Certainly something that I have had in my mind since we founded the FPC was an annual conference to be called the Firearms Policy Conference. I mean, it's quite funny that the acronyms would line up, but hey, it's uncanny. but an annual conference in which all of the organizations in the firearms community get around a table for 2 or 3 days, and they just debate and they talk and they present and they share ideas, because there, as discovered in the course of my research, there's a lot of dogma that has just been uncritically inherited over the decades, and this shows up quite often when it comes to the other organizations. We're talking about SAGA now. We've gone on this little bit of a tangent, but I'll bring it back to SAGA by saying that my impression of them is that historically they have been very apologetic about firearm ownership in South Africa, and they accept the control rationale. And you see it, you will see it whenever somebody says the Firearms Control Act is good law, which is badly implemented. That is the dead giveaway that they accept the control rationale behind it. And this makes it difficult to challenge the Firearms Control Act in any meaningful way, because unless there's something that is overtly irrational or absurd, you cannot challenge it unless you challenge the fundamental pillars of the Firearms Control Act. This is why SA Hunters failed. This is why GOSA failed. Fidelity won, I feel, on a bit of a prayer, but a very welcome prayer, because it was a win, and it was a much needed win, and it was very consequential. And so well done to Fidelity, their advocates, their attorneys, and the amicus curiae, especially SAKA. I think they deserve a special mention in their contributions in that case, emphasizing property rights. Moving on to GOSA. Their founding year, I'm not sure how long they've been around in name. Might have been as early as 2013, not sure. But they really started to gain traction around 2015, which was when I found them. And for a while, they were very promising. They were really building momentum. It looked like they were going places.
Yeah, they were very, very prominent for a time.
And even within broader civil society, free market foundations, Institute of Race Relations, the people that I know there, they knew who GOSA were, and they were excited to see, oh, look, there's something happening here in the firearm scene. Because until that time, really, SAGA was the only one that had been around, and the criticisms were not new at that point, that SAGA was seemingly quite ossified and moribund. But again, good that they are getting out of that rut, especially the last couple of years. So GOSA was going through, like, they looked unstoppable. Unfortunately, and I think there are very few people that would disagree with me on this, they have I don't know, I have not looked at anything GOSA related or seen anything or heard anything about them for the last 3 years. But until 3 years ago, they had a bit of a track record of being quite chaotic in their messaging and their nature. And I was part of GOSA formally until 2019, and then kind of hanging around until 2021, 22, and then dropped off. And so, yeah, I can attest to that as well. It didn't give the impression of a highly organized machine. Its corporate identity, or at least characteristics, I think it's a registered non-governmental organization. It started off as a voluntary association, but around 2018, that kind of changed. And so, much like other organizations that are not registered non-profit companies, incorporated non-profit companies, they may qualify for some like income tax exemption, but I don't think they can give out any benefits to members or subscribers or things like that. Always a very centralized organization as well. Significant powers for the chairman and their constitution. And most people will remember, big transparency scandal around 2022. I don't think that has ever reconciled or really been neatly put to bed and ended. It kind of just died away without getting closure, sort of thing.
But
Achievements? Yeah.
they've been, because at one stage they were very active. It was everywhere you looked, you saw something GOSA and shooting days and stuff like that. I haven't seen too much of them in the past few years. They were a lot quieter, my perception, than they used to be.
Yeah, that's the impression I think most people would probably have of them.
Mm.
Um, what GOSA did show in its heyday was what we could achieve if we can just get. It's a pity that it was so poorly coordinated and organized internally, because I mean, it's living proof it was not sustainable. If it was
Mm.
sustainable,
Okay.
that momentum would not have died, but clearly it has. But it does show that there is an appetite within the firearm community, the rank and file average firearm owner. They are willing to get behind something if there's energy and there's a mission and there's drive and there's purpose. But again, it can be very difficult to actually do that for any organization, and I speak for the FPC as well, when it's not a full-time occupation. Uh, when it becomes something like a full-time occupation, then you can do these sorts of things. Then you can invest the time. Then you can spend every living minute of the day on a radio show, going from one to the next, and then driving to the TV studio for an in-person interview there. Uh, you have that 24/7 activism going on, which I don't think any of the organizations really have right now. And again, this includes the FPC. Uh, one day, since we have PBO status, we just need to get a big funder to help us get off the ground, and then it could be a bit easier. But again, we don't want to be dependent on one big donor. We really want
Yes.
the energy and the enthusiasm of the community to be behind us, because big donors will drop you as soon as there's a little bit of controversy. Use the wrong pronoun or something, and off you go.
Yeah, I think that in this specific category, the firearms category, there's bound to be some sort of a controversy at some stage, because there is also a very solid array of players who are against firearm ownership, and they are always active. So there is bound to be some sort of a controversy at some stage.
I think you make a good point there by saying that it concerns firearms. Firearms are de facto controversial for some reason to sensitive people. But, and this is something FPC would love to coordinate with others to achieve in the long run, make firearm ownership normal. It is normal. There's nothing unusual or silly or weird about it. Like, it has this near mythological and legendary status because of media shows and long-running myths. Like, thank you, Gun Free South Africa, for that. But it can be made normal and an everyday item, not something to be feared and suspicious about. But yeah, that's the existential question that the community as a whole has to work together towards
Yes,
achieving.
yes.
Bringing it back to GOSA, achievements worth mentioning: 2018 High Court victory, very consequential, and that was unfortunately followed by the 2021 SCA failure, which just restored the status quo. So equally consequential, but just back on the opposite direction. There's a lot to say about the legal strategy that GOSA used here. I am not going to go into it now. That I'm sure we will touch on it in later videos when we get to the 21st century and the FCA and
Yes.
the regular series that we do. But honestly, considering there's a chapter in my dissertation about this, not just GOSA's High Court case and their stuff there, but also SA Hunters and Fidelity, the litigation angle as a whole is very interesting, and there are a lot of lessons to learn from that. More lessons can be learned from some places than others. Much like SAGA, my impression and my own knowledge of having been at GOSA for as long as I was, they're not very apologetic about from ownership, whereas SAGA is.
Okay.
But my impression also is that GOSA does or did, probably still does, accept the control rationale that underlies regulation in South Africa. So, yeah, that would be them
And
in a nutshell.
that's one of the really fundamental differences in that you at the FPC you do not accept that regulation.
Yeah, that's the big difference between us and all the other organizations, without a doubt. We reject the control rationale fundamentally. And I can say that because
But
we understand it. I would say we are the only
how
ones that understand it.
in the structures that are in place, how would you approach that in order to get that message across to government that these things need to change? You mentioned earlier a yearly sort of a strategy session between all the role players on the firearms community side. But that message clearly needs to get to government, as in this is not on. How do you go about
Yes,
that? How do you foresee going about that?
as you say, the FPC alone would probably struggle to bring this message on its own. But if it could coordinate with the other organizations and win them over through argument, logic, informed debate, get them on side and get them singing, everyone singing from the same hymn sheet. They don't have to sing all the same verses, but at least the broad outline and they can sing the chorus correctly. I was, not to say that a single organization can't make a difference. I was at the Free Market Foundation's 50th birthday, their Golden Jubilee in Johannesburg this past weekend. And of course, there was a bit of an intro session about the history of the Free Market Foundation. And my goodness, won't it be a great thing if the FPC can get 50 years old at some point? SAGA's coming up on that point now. They turned 40 this year. So well
Yeah,
done to
that's an
SAGA for
achievement.
that. Like
That's an achievement.
that's something to boast and brag about. Like SAGA could have
So,
died and just faded to
absolutely.
irrelevance ages ago, but it didn't. It's was still around and it's still here and it's even a bit revived now. So well done, SAGA, to that. And in the case of the Free Market Foundation, they mentioned how there was no property rights clause in the Constitution, the original drafts. The National Party had not even occurred to them to add that. Um, the ANC,
Oh,
of course, was a very socialist, communist organization at the time. And I do remember Nelson Mandela also saying something to this effect. Leon Lowe from the Free Market Foundation gave him a book. I can't remember who the author was or what the title was, but it was about free market economics. And Mandela read it, and he basically got back from Davos or wherever he was when he was given this book, and he just announced to the world that the ANC is now friendly towards markets in their rhetoric. Like there was no policy conference. He didn't argue with, he told the ANC, this is what we're going to do, and you're going to follow. He didn't give them a chance to fight back, and because he'd already made the statement. Compare this to Ramaphosa, who does nothing but debate behind the scenes, and obviously is quite vapid for that reason and ineffectual. You can't win, you can't achieve anything by consensus. You need to actually show leadership. And in that respect, Nelson Mandela showed some leadership. Thank goodness for that. South Africa could have gone a very different path were it not for the Free Market Foundation. One organization, which was more than one man, but Leon Lowe gets to be the face of that organization at that point in time. Continuing. Oh, yes. And so, as you mentioned, how we do this? Well, this conference idea, get people to sing from the same hymn sheet, decide what we want, make a plan, have the conditionals and the unconditionals, and know why we want them, know what we can achieve and what we cannot achieve. When you do that, well, then the world is kind of yours for the taking, I think. And just as it was for Gun Free South Africa and friends back in the late 90s, um, there was an opportunity for them to get what they wanted in farm regulation law, and they got it. Nearly entirely so. It was a big time, it was a time of a lot of change in South Africa as well at that time. why would that be any different to what we're going through now? There's a lot of change happening. The ANC is still a majority party, but it's in parliament, but it's not a dominant party anymore. And it's dying in real time. It is like, how do you go bankrupt? Well, slowly at first and then all at once. And now we're seeing it. The ANC was losing support a little bit, and then after last year, bang, straight down to 40%, 41 or whatever it is. And there are no signs that this is stopping. It's bad, and like it's like watching the World Trade Center all over again, but in political terms. It's incredible how fast this is happening. It's collapsing in real time before our eyes. They are panicking. There's this weird thing of Natim Tetwa having jumped or fallen or pushed or whatever out of a window in a hotel in Paris. ANC cabinet ministers do not die of anything except old age and probably diabetes or obesity. But they don't jump out windows.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what comes out of that case, because that was I was shocked when I heard that.
I was a little surprised. But then I saw a media article saying that, this could be related to the Madlanga Commission of Inquiry, which, again, Commission of Inquiries, who takes those seriously? They're just there and nothing ever gets done about them. But this article mentioned that every police minister has come from KwaZulu-Natal. And as we know, and as the Madlanga Commission of Inquiry is showing, it's showing what everybody already knows about the police as an institution. It is horrifically corrupt. I would say irreparably. In fact, I even once joked with Gideon Joubert, like, how would you fix this? Short of just abolishing the entire institution, firing everyone and rehiring from scratch. And to which Gideon said, well, if you did that, the crime rate would probably go down for the first few days. But the point is, like,
I know he's a proponent of that, yes.
I'm
but
more
basically
sympathetic to
what you're saying, Jonathan, is that this mess, let's just call it that, at the moment that we are seeing playing out before our eyes, could in essence be in our favor. It can make our lives, our journey to get to that point easier.
Change is sorely needed in South Africa. I was reading AfriForum, so tydskrif Forum, the past few days. It was given to me when I visited the Voortrekker Monument on Saturday. And I just thought it'd be interesting to read it. And it's like, and even there, South Africa needs change and it needs it now. And there are opportunities, there's change in there. And organizations like AfriForum are, fortunately, they're on the ground. They've been going at it a long time, but now the opportunity is coming for them to really seize the day and seize the moment. And I have been optimistic for South Africa for a long time, because the only constant is change. It might come slow at first. And as we are seeing now, it comes very quickly. And there's an opportunity that is starting to ready itself for substantial change in the firearm regulation space. South Africa as a whole is horrendously overregulated, overtaxed, and there are other adjectives that you can use to describe it. All of that has to change. Things have to be rolled back. Taxes have to be lowered. Regulation has to be rolled back. We have to stop inheriting the worst ideas we possibly can from Europe just because some bureaucrat in Brussels thought it was a good idea for Poland, or, well, Poland's a bad example because Poland has been pulling the finger at Brussels for quite a while now. But Germany and France and Belgium are all too happy to go along with all these regulations. South Africa should not be importing these things. I'm not saying farm regulation in South Africa came from, or the Farms Control Act came from Europe, but we need to deregulate a lot of things. And farm regulation in South Africa needs to be severely liberalized. It is just not working. The control rationale has failed categorically, totally. Uncategorically. There's no way of describing it. It has failed. It has not achieved anything. Even this idea that competency certificates and this proficiency training is is a good thing. We do not know. There is no data. It makes logical sense when you say it, that people need to have basic understanding of how firearms work and safety before they get a firearm. Logically, that checks out, but there's no data to say whether that's actually the case. And the government isn't exactly giving us anything to work with. A real effectiveness review of the Firearms Control Act has never been done. The Wits School of Governance report did an effectiveness review, but it was of how effective it was in line with its own provisions. It was not a review of the concept that underlies the Firearms Control Act, the control rationale. That is what we need to look at going forward. And to come back to the point, an opportunity is becoming available. The DA is quickly becoming the largest, is on the road to becoming a dominant party if it can figure out its leadership issues. Because, and I don't say this to be demeaning to them, but I don't get the impression that John Steenhuisen is the most charismatic individual to take it forward. The DA is nominally pro-firearm ownership. There are no details about what that actually means in their policy. And in case anyone's going to criticize me for saying that, well, the same is true for the Freedom Front Plus. They are nominally pro-firearm. There are no details in their manifesto on what that actually means. I'm not doubting their commitment to it. I'm just saying that they could do a lot better and tell us exactly what they believe and what they don't believe and not be so vague and vapid about it. And this goes for all political parties, though. It's not just them and the DA.
I think that sounds like a very typical sort of political angle. That
Yeah, it is.
vagueness, so that you can fall in line with whatever you need to fall in line with at any given time.
It's pandering. I think it's maybe it's a bit more than pandering. I do think the DA and the Freedom Front Plus are not opposed to farm ownership and actually support it. I just think they could do a lot better than what they do. And this is something that the farm community really has an opportunity for as well, to coordinate properly, to get more or less on the same page, and let political parties know, hey, there's a whole constituency here for you. Can you throw us a bone? Not just a little biscuit, but a full bone, please. What actually do you believe? Let us help you figure out what you should believe on this. What is achievable, what's not. And a gap is forming that we can really get a lot of change from just civil society and political actors as well. So
that can be exploited. So Jonathan, maybe to start wrapping it up, once you finalize your doctorate and it's now finally done and behind you, because it takes up a lot of your extra time, would you be proposing from your side then to start talking to these other organizations to try and get that process in motion as you guys slowly but surely start becoming a little bit more prominent and vocal, to maybe get to a point where it becomes a yearly thing where everybody sits around a table and
yes, like I said in the beginning, there's a lot of things that we still have to do within the FPC as part of building it up. It's a slow process, especially when all these different things competing for your attention. But once we get all of that together, yes, that is something we would like to be able to do. And I mean, even things are always changing. And even in my life and the FPC, there's always some change going on. And this all just feeds into the general optimism I have for the future as a whole. But before we wrap up, I would like to just quickly run off the last 3 organizations I have on my list here.
Let's do it.
The one being NARFO, National Association of Responsible Firearm Owners. They're pretty new. I think they've been around since 2018-ish, maybe a bit before that. I stand to be corrected. I don't know what their corporate identity is. I don't know what their structures are. I don't know what type of company or business or organization they are. They have a very broad focus for anything farm related. In fact, it gives the impression when you go to the website, this is a criticism, or yeah, a criticism of their website that would certainly help them if they were to give effect to it, take it seriously. Maybe say a little bit more about yourselves, guys. Who are you? Like, who's behind you? Like, who's your leader? What's your board of directors? That sort of thing. Because at the moment, it's kind of like going to the Checkers website and trying to find out what the nature of this company in like a more meaningful sense. I'm not too I can't vouch or talk about their effectiveness really. They, like I said, they're quite new, but they
Yeah.
are associated with the Safe Citizen Alliance, who I will discuss in a second. But they're here, and it's a good thing that they're here because
Yeah.
it's more voices at the end of the day, and we need this quite sorely. So yeah, unknown achievements. I don't know of anything they've really achieved. Perhaps, actually, I'm quite certain that they had something to do with driving people to make comments on the 2021 amendments. But that's about it. But that's something. We shouldn't discount it or belittle it at all.
Anything else?
Yeah. Safe Citizen Campaign. They've been around since around 2021. I was briefly involved there for a bit as well. It's led by Jonathan Deal. Corporate identity. I'm not sure what they are. Are they a Are they a non? I don't think they're a non-profit company. I'm not sure if they're an NGO, non-government organization, or like trust and all that. I don't really know what they are there. Broad focus on community safety, uh, but they do have a specific emphasis on farm ownership. Very consequential during the 2021 amendment process. They are the reason that we got the Wits School of Governance report at the end of the day. So well done to them. They were hounding the CSP for that and Gun Free South Africa. So well done to Safe Citizen for that.
So we owe them that debt of gratitude for that, because that was good work.
That's quite good. It's been a huge help to my own doctorate. Not too sure of their stance on the control rationale here in 2025, but in 2021, I think they were more. They were quite accepting of it and a bit more apologetic as well. Not too. There wasn't too much strength, I would say, behind it. And then finally, SAGA. This is not a rights organization. It's more of an industry or commerce body, represent organizations, businesses, dealers, gunsmiths, importers, things like that. I think they've been quite effective. They've been very active in litigation. You would expect this when it's a business matter. I don't know when they were founded or how long they've been around, but it's been a while. I don't remember a time where they were ever absent. They are a registered nonprofit organization, but they're not but they can't give tax benefits out. They can just be income tax exempt. And they probably accept the control rationale, but it's not really in their scope or reason for being to dispute that. They're there to represent commercial interests. But if we could get them on side, all the better. And yeah, that's basically the run through of all of the organizations. And we've done a lot more than just talk about them. We've chatted about the effectiveness of the community as a whole in doing this and opportunities for the future and what reason to be optimistic, I think. So
Yeah. Well, living here, there's a lot to be pessimistic about. So I suppose if there is anything you can grasp, even if it feels like you're grasping at straw, to remain optimistic, we want to remain living here, and therefore we must hope for a better outcome at the end of the day, and trust that we will get there somehow.
And the biggest thing to be optimistic about is the fact that we have all of this experience to date. We have had a lot of things we can learn from that's happened. Just because it's a failure doesn't mean that we throw it out and pretend it never happened. No, they happened.
Yeah.
SA Hunters was a failure. GOSA was a failure. The court cases I'm talking about now. There are things we can learn from that. the organizations have their strong points, they have their weak points. There are things we can learn from that as a whole, not just one learning from the other, but like everybody can learn from this. And
Yes.
if we are humble enough to take note of these things, well, then we can celebrate our differences as well. And that gives us a lot. We are
As we should.
We are off to a much better start.
Yes. Well, I think that last paragraph of yours kind of summarizes it quite well. That we can reach a point where we can celebrate our differences, even as we all work towards a specific outcome when it comes to firearms. I don't know about you, but that certainly works for me. That sounds good. That sounds like an ideal sort of position, and I hope and trust that we can actually get there. Jonathan?
I know people that they have 10-year. They recently took out 10-year licenses, so section 15, 16, and they've said, "No, what? It's my sincere hope that I don't actually have to ever renew these because the Firearms Control Act will cease to be a thing by the time that rolls around."
That will be nice. That will be nice. We live in hope. We live in eternal hope. Well,
yeah.
For the viewers, you know the situation by now. Please like the video. Please subscribe to the channel and smash that bell icon for us so that you can be notified of new videos coming out. This episode will also be available on the podcast on Spotify. It's called Quick Shots. So keep an eye out for it there. Jonathan, thank you so much. That's it from me. I'm very grateful that you took some time. I know you are very hectic at this moment in time, so I'm very appreciative of that. Thank you.
I haven't started to cry yet, so there's still some leeway in my schedule.
And then last, before I forget, as for the loan operator courses, if you are interested, as always, there will be a link in the description. Check it out, and we look forward to seeing you on a range one of these days.